I'm Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert. You know, these are the funnest sessions I get to do where we're talking to people about they as leaders, how they are living their values. And I'm so excited to have Cindy Ashton with me. Cindy, how are you?
Oh my God, I'm doing freaking awesome. How are you, Mr. Mitchell Levy?
Well, normally I'm like top shape. I think I'm doing really well. But for the
Yeah,
first time, I actually got the COVID thing. And so
yeah.
my energy level's a little bit down.
All right,
So,
I'll try to match yours so that I don't overwhelm you with my bigness.
oh no, you could be you, whoever that is. As a matter of fact, who are you?
Who am I? I'm Cindy Ashton. I think the best way to sum it up is summertime and the living is easy. At the soul of me, I
Mm.
am everything to do with liberating my voice, liberating your voice, liberating the voice of the world. So everything I do has to do with voice, whether I'm singing or acting or dancing in a production, whether I'm doing my TV hosting for the company that I work for, whether I'm working with my clients on how to speak from their power or my clients on landing the media attention. Everything I do has to do about getting your voice heard. It's so fun.
What is that real? No, I heard all of that stuff and
Yep.
some of it I heard. What does it mean to liberate your voice?
That's an excellent question. So, when somebody liberates their voice, in my opinion, it's about going to the depth and the truth of who you are, which is an extraordinary feat because first you have to be willing to do your inner work, because the truth is that each one of us is born and raised in a certain way, from a certain religion or not religion, from a certain culture or not culture, and from a certain country. We are all born and raised with our own biases, our own prejudices, and everything else that the world has told us that we are. So liberating your voice is truly about multiple things. The first level is being willing to let go of what you think you know. It's about questioning what you think you know. It's about taking time every day to ground and breathe and be present and listen to that little voice inside and that inner wisdom and slowly start to unpeel the things that are not true for you. So part of it is really doing the inner work. But from another level, as you do that, it's about being truthful in your message and in your alignment and what you are in, and allowing that to be expressed to the world, which takes an enormous amount of bravery, especially if you are breaking through barriers of what you were told that you are. So liberating your voice is truly about that place of truth. And it's also about not making other people wrong, because if we understand that we were all born and raised in our own way, then we stop making other people wrong and we start being curious about their journey instead.
No, I've known you for a while. I can't remember how long a while is. But it's been a while since we spoke.
Yeah.
So I've known you for a while, at least 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Although I think it's been 2 years since we spoke.
It would have been more than two because it was before COVID.
Then we must have known each other for longer than 5 years.
Yeah, it's been a moment.
Let me say this. What I heard you just say is probably something I could not have heard in the way you said it when I knew you before,
Hmm.
right? And so I guess, well, first of all, here's what I heard. Many people have these marketing cookie cutter approaches to how they live life. And so even when they're pretending to show up, they don't show up. And what you're doing is helping them show up.
Yes, on multiple levels.
Okay.
So technically, people go, "Oh, you're a speaking coach," and I'm like, "I'm really not." So yes, I mean, I have an extensive background as a singer, dancer, actor, and as an award-winning TV host. I clearly know a thing or two about body language and
By the
voice
way,
and messaging and
thank you for
storytelling.
breaking in this song at the beginning. That was so good.
But you know what I mean? Like, people go, "Oh, you're a speaking trainer." And I'm like, technically I'm not, even though I technically understand these on a level that most people don't because of my background as a performer. But to me, speaking from your power is about a depth of truth. Because what I'm seeing a lot of people do out there is like, oh, well, you need to stand here. You need to inch this way. You need to look in the camera this way. You need to over articulate to get your voice out. And they're teaching tactics instead of teaching people how to first and foremost get in their body. Because right now I'm not in my body. I'm over articulating and I'm trying to get my voice heard. Versus right now, I'm connected to myself and I'm in my truth and I'm in my power and I'm in my body, and I don't need to push my energy onto another human being. I just need to be in this power. And so when I talk about the speak from your power and liberate your voice, and people think I'm a speaking trainer, and I'm like, sort of, but not really. I'm looking at what's the deepest truth of who you are. What's that message? And then what do we need to release in your body and in your soul, and to be able to speak that from a deep place of power? Because here's the truth. There have been so many times, and Mitchell, you're in the speaking world, so you probably see this, where somebody gets up and they're a great presenter, but for whatever reason, you don't feel compelled to buy. And it has nothing to do with their sales tactics, but there's something about the energy that's off. And I see this all the time, that people say, well, I spent $10,000 to get a speech done. And the two problems I see is like, well, first of all, there's no emotional journey. Remember, I'm an actor. What's the emotional journey? Just don't give me a bunch of topics and lay them out and say that's a speech. The second problem I see is that nobody is checking to make sure that every single piece of that content, in addition to being in an emotional journey, is actually in alignment with your soul. So for example, I had a client, right? You got this, because it's all about values. And if you're outside your values, it's a big problem, because some people are great with the push energy and can sell snake oil, but the majority of people, the people who are truly mission driven and purpose driven,
those are people to avoid anyhow.
Yes.
Right? Those
snake oil. So it's interesting. Like, I had a client come to me about her product, and I was helping her with her pitch. And when I stood at the back of the room and I watched her present, I'm like, the audience was leaning in. They were listening. She was so in alignment and so passionate. And then she got to the part in her speech where she started to tell the story behind the product. And suddenly she started talking about her husband and how her husband and her discovered this, whatever. And her energy, there's nothing obvious, but her energy has shifted. There was stuff in her body language that shifted. Her voice went a little bit higher and it was a little more stressed, right? And when she got off the stage, because we had just started working together, that was my analysis. And I said, so are you in the middle of a divorce, or are you having issues with your husband? And she goes, how did you know? And I said, because you lost the audience because you weren't in alignment. She says, well, I have to tell that story. And I said, I'm going to help you craft a story that you are in alignment with, that still says the same thing, but you can deliver it in a way that's from your power and your truth and not your trauma. And this is a big problem that I see with a lot of speakers, is that they're telling the story from their trauma or something unresolved, versus understanding how to bring it into message alignment. Because I can tell you, Mitchell, I don't do sales tactics. I don't. I'm an actor. I'm a singer. It's about the emotional journey and the connection. And I've literally had 10 people in a room and made $100,000 with real no call to action, except for, if you want to go deeper, let's have a call. Like, people, it's,
well, you have to have the right 10 people in the room, but that's another story, right?
What?
You have to have the right 10 people in the room, right?
Right. And there is, yeah, you're right. You do. You have to have, right. That's a whole other, again, that comes back to message alignment and your values and understanding your brand values and attracting the right people.
So it's interesting to me.
Yes.
So when I'm going to say it I'm going to say this same thing you're saying, but different words.
Okay.
There are 10 values associated with credibility. And the one that's most relevant in this case, that the one value I list twice is integrity. External integrity is what you show to the outside world. Internal integrity is what's in here. And what you're really referring to is, so many times I've heard somebody who is a phenomenal speaker or a phenomenal pastor or a phenomenal rabbi.
Right.
And everyone is loving everything they're saying because the words are right. But I'm not feeling it in here. I'm feeling a mismatch and a misalignment.
Right.
And it's that hidden message. so it's interesting. So when somebody comes to work with you, you could
Mhm.
feel that, obviously.
Well, and I can read it in their energy, and I can read it in their body language, and when their voice goes up, or if they start to talk and it goes back and it cracks, like I can hear it in the voice. I can see it in the stress patterns in the body. I can feel it, and it's intuitive at this point. I've been doing this for 26
Well,
years.
tell me about you. I mean, there must be times occasionally where you get out of alignment, like we
Oh,
all as humans do.
oh yeah. I was out of alignment most of my life. And
Okay, didn't expect that. Okay.
yeah. So here's what I know. And Mitchell, I'm not sure if you know my backstory and why I do what I do, but when I was born with heart failure and a 20% chance of living, and the left side of my body was structurally damaged. So, and I always tell people when they say, "When did you know that you wanted to perform?" And I'm like, my earliest memories was putting on sequins and putting on the record player with Helen Reddy and going, "I am woman, hear me roar." I mean, that was my earliest memories. And my earliest memories was also always being the teacher, not just a performer. And my earliest memories was serving, saving birds and doing fundraisers for the pandas, for God's sakes. Like, I have always been the advocate, the teacher, and the performer. And that has always been the truth of who I am. But when I was born with all those issues, the doctor said that 20% chance I wasn't going to live. I had to literally have casts on my legs in hopes that they would grow out to be able to walk, let alone go on to dance 8 shows a week, which I have done in the past. And at 47, I can't anymore. It's okay. I got hired for other stuff now. But, and I had to have speech therapy to learn how to speak, let alone sing, so it's been, and then growing up in a hospital, in and out, in and out, in and out, and missing 1/3 of my education. Every time I would try to advocate for myself, I learned very quickly that because people can't see the illness, I'm not deaf, I'm not blind, I'm not in a wheelchair, you can't see all the illness. It meant that I'm automatically a drama queen. People go, "Oh, you look fine." And the number of times where I would feel like I'm invisible, like a doctor would have all his or her residents and say, "Well, look at this echocardiogram. Somebody died with this thing just last week." And I'm like, "Hello, I'm a human being. I'm here." And so this continued on through my childhood and into my teens. And even when I went to go for university, because I had missed 1/3 of my schooling, I was 2% too low to get in. My grades were 73% and not 75. And I wrote a whole essay as to what I had been through and why I had missed so much school. As a disabled person, they said, "Well, you're not disabled." And I didn't get into university. So my whole life, it has been one thing after the other around, I'm not worthy, I'm not seen, I'm not heard. So guess what I did? And yet I want to be a singer, dancer, actor, and I want to teach the world and impact the world and change the world because I'm done with all the bullshit going on. And so I literally have spent my entire life dedicating myself to learning and training and teaching and expressing the art, the science, and the craft of everything to do with speaking from your power and getting your voice heard. So when it goes back to the integrity, the reason why I was so out of integrity is because I was so damaged inside that I didn't believe in myself enough to speak my own truth, even though I was getting out other people's truth, even though I was getting people enormous results. I wasn't doing it for myself for a long time.
Yeah, sorry, I cut you off before, and you realized
No,
you
you're
had
good.
a point to go. There's a person I want to introduce you to. He runs an organization called Invisible Disabilities, and
Great.
I just think, yeah, I think he and you would get along quite well. He's a good character as well, and I'm hearing comments from the LinkedIn that you are a powerful person and people will follow you, which is great, and you are.
Thank you, Lori.
So it's interesting. So a speaker coach, if you're looking at what that is kind of considered somebody. By the way, it's so amazing that there's one term to mean so many different things.
Right.
Have you done the breaking of what a speaker coach is into categories?
Oh yeah, there's so many. I mean, there's people who specialize in voice, which obviously as a former opera singer, I can specialize in voice. Then there's people who just work on developing a talk. But then even within that, then there's ones who specialize in speak to cell talks. But then there's people who are just body language experts. Then there's people who are really developing your storytelling. I mean, it's all, then there's people who focus on stagecraft, and there's people who do camera. I mean, I teach all of it because I've done all of it as a performer. But most people usually have a specialty within that. And I wish that people would understand that there's different specialties within that. And my bigger wish, Mitchell, and I don't mean to throw people under the bus, but people say they're speaking public speaking coaches, but they don't understand voice.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of people who are training people to speak on stage, but they're getting them to push the voice, and those clients come to me and have to fix their voices because they've damaged their voices. I'm like, how do you teach people how to speak and you don't actually understand the anatomy and the physiology of the voice and the connection to breath? It's crazy, the stuff that I see. There should be some regulation because it's literally damaging people's voices for life.
Painful.
I know. But you're right. There's a lot of different categories, and I wish there was a way for people to understand before they bought what they're getting into.
That's kind of simple. You had this amazing aha message to me. Is it would be great to know if there are, I think you identified 4, but if we can come up with 5 different types of speaking coaches. Now, do you do all?
I do all of it.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And it'd be great.
And I've got a whole team at this point.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So how do you know, this is an interesting question. How do you know when you run into a peer who calls themselves a speaking coach and they do 3 or 4 of those, but they don't do 2 or 3 or whatever it is? And how do you know how to respond? How do you know how to talk to them?
I think everybody gets to be who they want to be. It's not and listen, every human being has value. So whoever is meant to be their client will be their client. I don't see any competition, but the thing that does bug me is when people are working on voice and they don't understand voice, because it literally damages people's voices.
All right, got it. So that's one thing. What about on the other categories? What else do people do that cause? I don't think we can do irreparable harm, but we can in that case. But what else do people do that is, I could think of a couple myself, but what do you think
I want to know what yours are.
Oh, well, I think the people who stand up there and they're sell from stage. And it turns out that they actually have a product and a target market that it doesn't make sense ever to sell from stage.
Right.
But they still teach them that would be one that's the obvious from my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that. Is that there's a really, and I feel like a lot of people are saying go out and speak, but no one's talking about what's your speaking purpose. So, I mean, and people say, oh, it's because I want to bring more light to the world. Well, that's lovely. But what is your actual speaking purpose? Is it to bring in more clients? Is it to build yourself into, you work with thought leaders, I work with social impact leaders. If we don't take on anybody in our company unless they're actually changing the world, doing some pretty amazing stuff around causes. So when we're working, it's so important to understand that these people might actually want to get paid to speak. Same with you have to understand what is your speaking purpose. And I feel like that's a really big miss. I mean, and that's another category of a speaking coach that helps you to get gigs. So there's so many categories, but I think that that's a huge problem. I think the other problem that I see is that there's too many people mapping out people's talk, and the content's really good, but the content doesn't do anything because they missed out on what's the emotional journey.
Yes. Emotional journey triggers to what they either want to do or want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And helping them to have the insights, because if you build a speech, in a way that takes people on an emotional journey without manipulating them, because that's the other problem in this industry. There's too much manipulation going on, Mitchell. And I'm like, you don't need to manipulate people if you're just truthfully who you are and you truly understand what your audience is thinking in their head, and help them to identify that, take away any shame they have around that, make them feel human, and build in a pathway for them. And that sounds so simple, but it's not that simple. And because again, I feel like people go, oh, here's my fun opening story, or the 3 questions I'm going to ask people to reflect on. But why ask them a question to reflect on instead of bringing them on an emotional journey where they actually have a visceral feeling, where they actually go, like, they actually feel it inside their body. They're not just thinking it in their head. If somebody feels it in their emotions versus in their head, they're going to buy. They're going to buy into your message. They're going to buy into you. And I feel like it's a big missing piece. And that's why a lot of people have these speeches and people go, I'm inspired. That was awesome. But people aren't taking action on what they have to say.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. Like I said, I've known you for a while.
I know.
But I didn't know you, even if you may not have changed, I have. And I see you as somebody who is powerful and focused on the human doing the right thing for the right reason. All right. So, here's the question. So what happens? Somebody comes to you, they have money in hand.
Right.
They want to speak from stage and they have the wrong reason. Do you turn down, do you either A, try to change their reason, or B, do you turn them down and tell them why? Or do you take them on?
Nope. I won't take them on. My business partner, Christina Daves, who's super awesome. The 2 of us are hardcore. And every time people come to our events, they're like, this is the best, because we are so vetted. We vet people so carefully that people are like, we have never been to an event where every single person is a complete rock star. And so if I get that person, I might just say, like, I'm curious why you feel this way, or I'm curious because I like to be in curiosity. And I'll just say, you know what? I feel like we're not the right fit and I can't help you. So I don't make them wrong. I don't believe that anybody needs to be made wrong, because believe me, there's a lot of times that I've been out of alignment and done things for the wrong reasons. And I would hope that people would be loving and compassionate with me. Everybody has their journey. But, you know, one of my clients said, Cindy, what you really do is message alignment and embodiment. That's what you really do. At the core of what you do is getting yourself in alignment with every single part of your business and learning to speak that from that embodied, deep, truthful place. So yeah, we turn people down with love and just say, this isn't a fit.
I love that. But once again, you could say those words, and I'm not sure I would have known what that meant 2 years ago.
I don't lead with, I do message alignment. That's not what I lead with. That's not a message that would sell.
I know.
No, we help our people go from established to known. You're already established, you're already kicking ass, but now you want to be known, not from an ego point of view, but because you want to be known because you want to change the freaking world, you know. But I don't lead with, I'm going to help you to get into message alignment. That's terrible messaging. Nobody knows what it means. I mean, some of the people, like, I will have a consultation with somebody and they'll go, you are all about embodying. Even though I don't really use that wording a lot, people will go, some people will get on the deeper level what I really do. It's cool.
By the way, let's have a little bit of time, because we'll play a little bit with your C-pop, because I think you could embody some of that in there. But I want to ask at the moment, is there a question that I should have asked you that I didn't?
Yes. In what way am I liberating my voice on a different level?
Ooh, cool. Okay. Hey, Cindy, in what way are you liberating your voice on a different level?
Yeah. So as I've mentioned, I'm really awesome at getting everyone else to do it. And I've done it in a lot of ways. If you look at my credentials, they're kind of amazing. And my whole life I've been hired to sing everybody else's music. I've been hired for opera. I've been hired for musical theater. I've been hired to do everything else for everybody else. And my whole life I've been writing music. And the one time I put a song out in the world, I got almost 300,000 views on YouTube, but I was so distraught because it wasn't the truth of who I am. The lyrics were the truth of who I am, but it didn't express my voice as an artist. And so I have a song. I've been so upset about all the insanity going on in this country and in this world. And I'm like, all you do is write human rights songs. Like, not all I do. I really need to have some love songs in there. But the majority of stuff I write is about getting your voice heard and human rights songs. So I'm very proud to say that I am putting my first song out called, I don't know if I've ever, I don't think I've announced this publicly yet, but it's called Standing Strong. And we're starting a whole movement behind it. We've got Women's Global March on board. We've got White Ribbon. We've got groups of different types of human rights groups who are like, we're going to promote this song. We're going to get this out to millions. And I'm like, I'm bowled over because no one's heard anything I've written ever except for that one song. And everyone's like, oh, we just trust you're a really good musician. It'll be whatever you put out is going to be great. I'm like, God, now I've got all this pressure. So for me as an artist, I've been very confronted the way that some of my clients are confronted when they get to the deepest truth of who they are and express it. So I'm doing it for myself on an even deeper level. And I'm very excited and very proud.
Nice. And what's the fundamental message that the words embody and you want someone to take away from this song?
That's a really good question, because one of the challenges I've been having with this is that we have enough division in the world when it comes to standing up for human rights. And I didn't want to create division. And the way that I crafted the lyrics was so that people can truly feel seen and heard. So various groups of people that feel like they have been targeted and that their rights have been taken away. I really wanted them to feel like they're being seen and heard without making other people wrong, which has been very tricky for me because we've got to bring people together and stop, and I took out any words that were about fighting. So I would say the core message of this, and it's still, we're more than halfway through. We're almost there. Would really about being around standing strong together and understanding that we have the support and the power and the love to do it. And that the people who are predators in the world and who are trying to take away the rights, those are only one voice. And there is lyrics around there that's one voice, but we have the power as a group to shift the energy. And I'm just trying to be careful without going, because, I really haven't announced this. I mean, people know I'm writing a song and it's coming out, but that's all they know.
Well, I'm absolutely
now they know a little more.
I'm looking forward to supporting you in however I can.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. I feel so blessed. I can't believe how these people are like, we're going to promote. I mean, I couldn't believe when Women's Global March Global, I'm like, they've got millions of followers. I was like, you haven't heard the song? We're like, we know you're going to do a great job. And I'm like, okay.
Well, it's you.
Right?
You put it out there. You made yourself. You've been able to do good for many other people, and they know you and they feel your presence, right? And so you say you're doing something that will be beneficial to humankind. And so they're like, yeah, like it.
Thank you. And Lori, thank you for that support. She's supporting me in her comments.
Yeah. Lori Payne's an amazing human.
Yeah, I can feel into that energy, and she seems super amazing. Yeah.
So I want to say, listen, if you've listened or watched us, and Cindy is somebody that you can relate to and want to reach out to, I'm going to say, please do. Cindy, how best can people do that?
So for the speaking, and I do that in quotes because I do more than speaking. Side of the career, you can go to speakfromyourpower.com. And for my singing and acting career, because I also have a film that I got cast in that's coming in, cindyashton.com. And you can hear me sing there.
I like it. And this is the time for everyone else. This message needs to be spread. So it's time to spread a little bit of cred dust. So click on the like button, share with your friends, and we'll see you at the next episode. Thanks so much. Take care.
Michelle, thank you so much.
Oh, always my pleasure.